Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to Lost. My name is Kirioth and this is going to be a bit of a different video again. We seem to be doing a lot of different videos at the moment. This one is a bit more personal, I think, than a lot of the stuff that we've put on the channel before, with the exception of Sty. I mean, Sty has mentioned his personal situation in terms of his Crohn's quite often on the channel, and he also did his video about the YouTube stress effect. He's been very open and honest about the problems that he has in terms of health. I haven't been quite as open. I've been honest, but I haven't been open about it before. And I feel I'm in a kind of, I guess, a good enough position and a stable enough position to be able to make this video and basically tell you essentially what my problem is, as it were. So what I'm going to talk about today is essentially my depression. And don't worry, it's not going to be like an hour's worth of me sobbing and weeping into the camera. It's not anything like that. And kind of how it, I guess, how it affects the way I game and why I enjoy games as much as I do, and I guess what I play games for. So I guess it's just a link between the two. And it seems, it seems relevant to the channel. After all, I do spend a lot of my time playing games and recording those games so that you guys can watch it. And we do talk about games all the damn time because it's our hobby, it's our interest, and it's what we do day to day. And of course, I'd be completely lying if I said I didn't want to try and reach out to people who perhaps don't feel as though there are other people around with the same problem that they have. So I mean, it's probably going to be a bit tricky because I've never done a video like this before, and I've never really talked openly about depression before, despite the fact that it's had quite a large impact on my life over the years. But I want to make the video and I want to share it with you guys, and I want to see what you think, and I want people who need help or feel that there isn't any help to know that there is, because I'm telling them and I know from first-hand experience. So I think basically we'll start off with essentially what depression is. So if you don't know, depression is a mental illness, and well, the best way really to describe it is to actually just tell you what it involves. So what I'm going to read to you here is from the NHS UK website, which obviously I use because I'm British and therefore I use the NHS. So psychological symptoms of depression: continuous low mood or sadness, feeling hopeless and helpless, having low self-esteem, feeling tearful, feeling guilt-ridden, feeling irritable and intolerant of others, having no motivation or interest in things, finding it difficult to make decisions, not getting any enjoyment out of life, feeling anxious or worried, having suicidal thoughts or thoughts of harming yourself. Physical symptoms include moving or speaking more slowly than usual, change in appetite or weight, usually decreased but sometimes increased, constipation, not experienced that one personally, but someone probably has, unexplained aches and pains, lack of energy or lack of interest in sex, changes to your menstrual cycle, again, not experienced that one myself personally, and disturbed sleep, for example, finding it hard to fall asleep at night, or waking up very early in the morning. So, that is essentially what I have, with the obvious two that I pointed out that I haven't experienced. And I've essentially had depression for about, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but the first time I had any real problem with it was when I was about 14 or 15. So I'm 18 now, so about 14 years ago. And that was during high school, and I missed a significant chunk of 1 year of high school due to depression, which kind of fed into anxiety problems that I was having at the time as well. And at that time, there wasn't really a coping mechanism that I had for it, added to which I'm glad to say that attitude towards mental illness has changed a lot in the past 10 years alone. So whilst it took a while for me to get any sort of diagnosis or even get any sort of treatment, I did eventually, and it kind of helped. It pushed it back a little bit until I was quite a bit older. So I kind of had one severe incident in high school where I was gone for a couple of months, and then I was kind of okay after that to a degree. Now, I've always been like a much lower energy person than most of the other people around me, which I've just got used to. Some people are just low energy, that's just how it is. But I'm kind of the way to tell, I think, when you have a real problem with depression, or in fact any sort of like physical illness, is how long the symptoms last, how much they affect you, how bad they are. Now, my depression it's clinical depression, and there's a couple of different types. It's very. I think they say maybe is it 50 or 60%? It could be more than that. I can't remember. I read this quite a while ago. Of people will have some sort of depressive episode at some point in their life, which is a staggering statistic, really, given how little awareness there is of it. And it can be caused by many things. There's one type of depression called, I think it's seasonal affective disorder, which essentially is when winter comes round, someone with that problem will become depressed. It's very tied into the seasons. It's very interesting, actually. I still have no idea what causes it, despite reading up quite a lot about it. But there's also depression that's been brought on by things like losing a loved one or losing your job. People who've been in an accident and perhaps lost the use of legs or arms, or there's a lot of things that can cause depressive episodes. My depression it's not quite as simple as that, because there's no distinct cause or trigger that we've been able to work out. I'll say we, because I've been, since last year, receiving therapy for it. So there's nothing really that sticks out as to what would cause me to have depression, to be depressed for as long as I have been. But it sort of doesn't matter, in a way. By this point, it's not so much what caused it to happen in the first place as how I manage it day to day. So I think the best way to really describe how it affects life in general, everyday life, and when I'm having a particularly bad time of it, which I did last year, is just to give you a viewpoint into what happened last year on the channel. So, channel was doing well. We were really enjoying ourselves. We were producing a series on Civilization and XCOM, and one day I stopped being in videos. I just stopped. You probably, if you're a follower of the channel, a regular follower of the channel, you'll have noticed that I suddenly wasn't in videos anymore, and that went on for a couple of months. There was no explanation given. There was no reasoning given. Largely because Sty, being the good chap he is, didn't want to share details of stuff if I wasn't comfortable with it, and at the time I wasn't. What that actually was over the course of a very short time, probably about 2 weeks, I went from being pretty much perfectly healthy and I guess normal, if you want to put it like that, to having a serious depressive episode. And I don't want to. I kind of worry about going into too much detail in case it upsets those people who've been through the same thing or have seen someone become hurt due to the same thing. But if I'm going to be blunt and honest about the whole thing, then I kind of feel like I should be blunt and honest, all the way. So the months where I was not making videos and not making content and not doing work of any kind, essentially what happened was, very quickly I went from feeling quite tired and I guess just a bit irritable, and I think just a little bit, almost like I was a bit sick of everything. Sometimes when you're doing the same, say for instance I get the best analogy I've ever managed to think of is like doing the washing up. No one likes doing the washing up, right? Doing the dishes. No one likes doing that. It's not interesting. It's not fun. And everything felt like doing that. It felt like there was a massive pile of washing, like ceiling high, that I had to do like every day. But it was every task. And I didn't realise it. Like, I just didn't notice it. It crept up on me and I didn't see it coming at all until it got to the point where just after we adopted my dog, my adopted lurcher Bingo, we adopted her on the Sunday. And on the Monday, when my wife went to go to work, she's a vet nurse and she works about 40 minutes away, I just literally couldn't do anything. I had a severe panic attack, anxiety attack, to the point where I literally was incapable of forming sentences. I just couldn't do anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was. I didn't understand why I was being asked to look after this dog. I didn't know what to do with the dog. I didn't know what to do if I was left by myself. And that was kind of the first real hint that something was going seriously wrong. And I'd had depressive episodes before that, but they hadn't been anywhere near as severe, really. And over the course of those few months where I wasn't on the channel, I kind of those symptoms that I listed, like especially the psychological ones, like low self-esteem, hopeless and helpless, low mood and sadness, anxious or worried, that was me every single day about everything. There was literally nothing I could do with anything. In fact, when it says, for instance, for the symptoms, having no motivation or interest in things, that's a massive understatement. I had so little motivation that I didn't eat because I just didn't want to eat. There was no kind of, you have to eat because otherwise you will die. It was just, I don't feel like eating. And that applied to absolutely everything. And it's very easy, I think, to, when someone says, oh, well, I didn't feel like doing it, for you to say, well, you've just got to do it. It's not that simple when it comes to depression. And this is something that I think people don't understand, especially those who say things like, oh, you just need to just go for a walk, just kick yourself out of it, you'll be fine. It doesn't work like that. You are essentially overriding every logical and sensible thought that you are having with what can only be described as a torrent of basically sadness and anxiety and worry, and everything you do has the potential to go disastrously wrong if you could even be bothered to do it in the first place. But you can't, because there's absolutely no reason in any way to do it. And even if you could do it, it's so terrifying that you don't want to. That's the only... I think so. I can't remember who said it, but someone likened it to standing in a room or being in a swimming pool and you being in there with loads of other people and everyone else is floating and you're the only one that's drowning and you don't know why. That's the best way that I've heard someone describe it. It's a complete disconnect from the world. It's a complete disconnect from reality. There is literally no aspect of your life that you want to engage in, because everything is either terrifying, worrying, bad enough to bring on anxiety attacks, or just downright not worth it because you are not worth the time it takes to do those things. In the couple of months before I was given real proper help, actually no, that's not fair. In the couple of months before the therapy started and I was given increased doses of the medication I am now on, which is fluoxetine, if you're curious, which is a antidepressant, there were several points, I think probably 5 or 6, in the space of a couple of months, where my wife or my family, my parents, had to call, in the UK it's called the crisis team, who essentially intervene when you are attempting to hurt or kill yourself. So there were actually times where I was in such a position that and I'm not going to say it's in any way sensible or logical, because it's not, because it doesn't make any sense, was attempting to cause myself serious bodily harm to the point where I would be dead afterwards. And that's not, I'm sorry that that's not pleasant and it's not interesting or funny, but that's just the stage that I was at. And hopefully that gives you an indication as to just how serious it is. It's not just a case of shaking it off and going for a walk. It's a complete mental shutdown to the point where you have convinced yourself that the only possible way forward, or the only possible way out of the way that you're feeling and the situation you're in, is to stop existing entirely. That's how severe it is. So understandably, I wasn't doing a lot of work. I wasn't really recording anything, I wasn't appearing in any videos, and I wasn't on any streams. And I'd hope that that is kind of obvious as to why that is the case. In fact, to this day, you probably noticed that I haven't been on streams nearly as often as I was before. I mean, Sty's always streamed more than me, but I would do solo streams a while back. I would, jump into streams he was doing, and it's actually a lot rarer now that I do anything with streaming, and that's largely because still at this time, despite how much better I am than I was last year, I'm still at a point where the anxiety of doing something live is enough to put me off from doing it. Now, at some point, that'll get better. I've got no doubt about that. That will improve, and at some point, I will probably end up streaming again. But for the moment, I am affected enough by how, I guess, daunting it is that I just don't want to do it. And I'm lucky in that I don't have to do it, so that's fine. It's not a problem. Doing videos, I'm absolutely fine with, because if I get it wrong, I can scrap it and start again. I still have just a bit of a mental block preventing me from doing the same with streaming. I feel like it's a little too much for me to take on at the moment. But as I say, things are improving, and I've improved to the point where I'm happy to make this video. So, eventually, hopefully, that'll go away as well. It just takes time. But one of the things that's really helped me, and I kind of can't really put into words how much it's helped me through quite a few depressive episodes. I mean, as I say, last year was the worst. I have had others before. They've been nowhere near as severe, but they have caused issues with sleeping. They have caused issues with anxiety. They have caused issues with, lack of motivation and struggling to do things on a day-to-day basis. But they've been nowhere near as bad, and I've been able to continue functioning, I'd say normally, normally compared to everyone else, but not normally for me, because it's taken a lot more energy than I actually have. But one of the things that's helped me to an extraordinary degree has been gaming, and that's part of what this video is about. Is the fact that, when you're having a depressive episode, quite often you feel a complete disconnect. You don't feel enjoyment. You don't do things because you want to do them, because you feel driven. You don't like, this game, I've got to play this game. I've absolutely got to play this game. You don't get that feeling. You don't get that feeling about anything, literally anything, which is obviously where it starts impacting on your working life and your home life, because if you've got absolutely no interest in going to work, you don't go to work. And it will get to the point where you have no interest in even getting out of bed. And again, being completely open and honest, I had a couple of days where I literally didn't get up. I went to the toilet, then I went back to bed, and that was it. There was absolutely no activity during the day whatsoever. That's obviously a very bad stage that you don't want to be at. That was just before I started having to have interventions to prevent harming. So, again, that hopefully gives some idea as to just how serious it is. It's not just a get up and walk it off type thing. But something that really assisted me was gaming, and that's the fact that the thing that helped me with it is that a big problem with the anxiety side of things, with the idea of feeling hopeless and helpless, about feeling guilty all the time, is that you feel that about every decision you make. At least that's how it happened for me. Obviously, it does differ from person to person, but that was the problem I had. Everything was just daunting to the point where I didn't want to do it, and I've never had that in games. And whilst I was having that episode, one of the things that was recommended to me was to make like a list, almost like a shopping list, a things to do list. So today, the first one I ever did was have shower, have breakfast. That was my list for the day. I managed one thing off that list, which was to have a shower. I didn't have breakfast. That was still considered a success by my therapist, because I actually did something. Again, hopefully give you some ideas to just how bad it can get. But the thing that I found, especially last year, was it kind of hit this depressive episode around the time that Titanfall was launched. So I started playing Titanfall, and I was kind of enjoying it before I got really bad, and I didn't really feel a massive drive to play it. But I kind of got to the point where after a couple of weeks I did, not because I particularly wanted to have fun or enjoy myself. I was still suffering from a serious disconnect, but it gave me the opportunity to make those things to do lists in an environment that did not affect my everyday life. So it would be a case of, I want to rank up, or I want to unlock this gun, or I want to unlock this attachment for this gun, or I want to unlock this thing for this Titan. And that was basically, or I want to get this many points or this many kills in a game. And that actually assisted me to a huge degree, because it allowed me to make those decisions and make those kind of bullet point goals in a way that didn't impact on what I did every day. So if I set myself the goal of, okay, today I'm going to make dinner when my wife comes home, and I didn't do that, I immediately felt terrible. Like, if it's possible, even worse than I already did, because I'd set myself this goal and I'd failed it. And as a result, someone else was affected. And that was, that's one of the big things that feeds into this cycle of like, I guess, self-doubt and anger and upset. And that was a problem, because for every time you try and set yourself a step and then you don't make that step, you then set yourself back 2 steps because you failed in what you set out to do. But that doesn't happen in games. It doesn't happen. It's just not a thing. It's like, oh, you failed it. Well, here you are at the last save, the last checkpoint. Or, oh, I didn't get as many kills as I wanted this round. Oh, well, I'll just try next round. Titanfall was my go-to game for that time, simply because I could set myself such easily quantifiable goals that did not impact on the way I interacted with the people around me. And when I look back at other games that I've played over the years, I've done similar things. Like when I used to play Freelancer for hours on end every day, for years as well, I played Freelancer. There was a point where Freelancer for me was not a case of I really want to play this game because I enjoy it. It was a case of I want to play this game because I can get into this game and I can leave all of the baggage and all of the crap and all of the stupid circular thoughts that go around my head all day, every day. I can just leave them out. I don't have to bring them into the game with me. They don't exist in the game. They're not relevant to the game. They're not relevant to what I'm doing. They don't actually have any impact on what's going on in the world that I'm now in. And again, that was something that I did with Freelancer, and in fact that's something that has endeared Dragon Age Origins to me. I talk about Dragon Age Origins whenever RPGs come up because it's my favourite RPG. That's down in no small part to the fact that whilst it was only a small and relatively, I guess, not unimportant, but it didn't impact my everyday life all that much. I had a depressive episode where I just really struggled to get things done. I just felt really sad about everything. It was kind of, if it weren't for the fact that I knew it was depression, you could have easily assumed that I'd lost like a grandparent or a parent. It was that kind of thing. It was almost like grief, but there was nothing to grieve over. And Dragon Age absolutely was invaluable to me for that, because whenever I loaded it up and loaded in my character, everything that I was feeling was just gone. There was just a goal ahead. It was, I'm going to complete this quest, and that's all there was. And that's one of the reasons why I guess games have such a big impact and a big meaning to me, is the fact that they're not just there for me to have fun with. They are something that actively helps in my everyday life. They're something that I can actually turn to and, in a very weird way, escape what I'm actually feeling at the time. One of the big things that I was told repeatedly by the team that helped me last year was that if I felt like I needed to escape, I needed to call them. That was what I had to do. If I felt like, again, like at any cost, I had to get out, I had to call them. That was the rule. And the reason for that is that once you let that get too strong, you start to feel like that everywhere, no matter where you are. You can leave the house, but you'll feel it on the street. You can leave the street and go into a field. You feel it in the field, you come back home and you will still feel the need to escape. And that's where for me personally at least, the urge for self-harm and suicide came from. The fact that I had to be in control of something, because I wasn't in control of my own thoughts, I wasn't in control of what I was doing, I wasn't in control of how my body reacted to the thoughts I was having, but there's got to be something you can control, and that's where you are. So if you can escape. And I actually got to do that, but I didn't have to do anything that left me with scars or hurt my wife or hurt my family. I just loaded up a game, and that's all it was. And that's kind of, I guess that's the thing that I really love about games, the relationship I have with them, is the fact that they're not just fun to me. They're not just like a funny little thing to do. They're not just a little hobby that you can have. They're something that can actually literally help me clear my mind. There's something that literally resets my thought process. If I'm having a particularly shitty time of it, if I'm starting to get into that circle that I've been taught how to get out of, the circle where you get upset at something, but then you get angry at yourself for getting upset, but then you get upset because you're getting angry, and you know that there's no reason to be upset, so why are you getting angry? And it just goes round and round and round. Now, thanks to the therapy I've received, cognitive behavioural therapy, and the medication that I'm on, I can usually dig myself out of those situations. They still happen, probably a couple of times a week still, and it's been a long time since the depressive episode I had last year. But the severity of it is that it's still affecting me now, nowhere near as much, and I'm getting a lot better at dealing with it, but it is still affecting me now. But it's not just for me a case of sitting there and kind of being like, okay, I think I can think my way out of this. I can think my way out of it. If I can't, I can do something different that I think people overlook, and I can just load up a game. I can load up a game I've played many times before. Space Marine Exterminatus, for instance, is now it's become my go-to because it's mindless. It really is mindless, right? I love the game. I absolutely adore it. It's fantastic. It's what I think being a Space Marine should feel like. You're just this big walking tank with a massive weapon. It's brilliant. But I'm not going to sit there and suggest that there's a huge amount of tactical thinking that goes into the early stages of a Space Marine Exterminatus session, which is the Horde mode, because there isn't. And even if there was, I've played it so often now I know it inside out. So I'll load it up and I'll play it. And in my head, instead of this constant cycle of talk, of backchat, of upset and anger, instead all I've got are very simple instructions that just filter straight through into the game. So, I know that they will spawn over there, so go over there. Okay, you've killed those, they're going to spawn over there, so go over there. Oh, your mate over there's in trouble. Go and rescue them. And it sounds very kind of step by step and very logical and very kind of, well, Kiri, you're not being spontaneous there. You're just sort of going through the motions. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm a big fan of going through the motions if going through the motions gets you to a point where you are stable in your own mind. And that's kind of what games can do for me. If it's a brand new game, then I'll get lost in it and I will, I'll leave all that baggage at the door and I'll be able to get immersed into the world and I will enjoy it. It will bring me back. It will actually force me back out from the shell that I've constructed in my own head and allow me to enjoy something again. If it's a game that I've played many times before, it is that simple repetition of steps, that simple list, that thing to do list of do this, do this, do this, do this, and by the time you've done it, I guess I get so caught up in the action of it that it draws me out simply because I followed it. I get that satisfaction of, okay, I've done that. And then I turn it off and it stays, that satisfaction stays. And that sense of having achieved something stays and pushes me up from the slump I was in. And that's why I get so passionate about games. That's why I get so irritated at certain publishers and developers. That's why I will defend games that I like, especially games that have had a significant impact on me. And that's why I do what I do on the channel, because for me it's not just about enjoying a game. It's not just about the fun of it, or whether it was a good design or a good soundtrack. It's about the fact that games fulfill an emotional support role in my life, and the fact that there are games that I can actually turn to that I know for 100% certainty will make me feel better is absolutely incredible. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think I don't know how well I've explained depression to you, because it's kind of hard to describe it without coming across as, well, someone who's got a mental illness, which is what it is, funnily enough. I do hope, though, that you've got from this the fact that there are things you can do. There are steps you can take. Last year I was in a position where I could have easily, had I not had the support I had, not be talking to you now, in a very literal sense. I was lucky and I had that support. I know that not everyone does, but the key thing to remember is that you might not have that support right next to you, but there are people there who will support you. There are people in a community who will help you. There are people in the unit loss community who, last year when I said on the forums why I was not around for a bit, they showed support and they helped. And it probably, a single forum post, there's a couple of lines, might not seem like much to you, but to someone in the position that I was in, it can make the difference between a bad day and a good day. And when your bad day consists of imagining ways to kill yourself and a good day consists of smiling, it's a big difference that you can make. I guess if there is someone watching, and there probably is, because depression affects a lot more people than I think anyone gives it credit for. Not that you want to give it credit. There is always someone out there who's got the same problem, and there's always help to be had. Always. You might not be in a lucky position like me. You might not have the NHS, for instance, who provided me with free therapy and free medication. You might not have someone who lives with you who's able to help you, but there are other resources. You know, there's any number of charities you can turn to. There's any number of communities that you can talk to. I mean, there's even communities that have got nothing to do with depression, like our community here, who will talk to you and will help you. And in the meantime, find something that works. For me, it's games. It could be games for you. If you're not sure how to deal with things, try things that I've talked about. You know, things like setting yourself a list. Set yourself things to do. Put yourself 2 things on the list and aim to achieve 1. If you achieve 1, congratulations. If you don't, make sure you do it tomorrow. And I know it's very easy to say that, and it's a lot harder to actually go through with it because, as you know, I've been there, but it's a way forward. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, well, Kiri, I've been lying in bed for the past 4 days and I haven't eaten anything and I haven't spoken to anyone and all I do is think of ways not to be here, then write a list, but just make it 1 item and make it find help. It'll take all of your energy. It'll be a pain in the arse. You won't enjoy it. It'll get you pissed off and upset and angry and anxious. And you'll sit there and wonder if there's any point. But there is. There's always a point to finding help. Because you can just wait for it to pass. And eventually it might do. Or you could use up all of your energy reserves that you've got for the entire week and put it into 1 10-minute phone call and get help for it. It's a difficult choice to make, especially when you're affected by depression, but it is a choice that you are capable of making. So make it. And in the meantime, if nothing else, play games. Play games. Escape into someone else's world. Be someone that isn't you for a change. Do something that, even if you don't enjoy, that you can at least get appreciation and distraction out of. So, I hope that's been interesting, helpful, enlightening. If you know anyone who's kind of got this issue, then by all means share the video with them. If you've got this problem and you want to talk about it, then we have a forum, unitloss.com. Posting in there, you will get any amount of support. And I think that's about it. I think I'll better stop because I'll be able to ramble for another half an hour if I'm not careful. So I will leave it there, guys, and well, I will see you next time. Toodaloo.